Hi there, everybody. I am Sheila Kennedy, and I'm here for Meet the Author Showcase. And I have a very special author today. The goal of this show was to always get you, provide you the opportunity to get to know the authors behind the books. And today, again, I have a very special author with me. Her name is Stephanie McKeith. And she is going to tell us all about her book and all about her. And I want to welcome you, Stephanie.
Thank you for having me.
I am so happy that you're here today. It's been a little bit. I haven't seen you in a while, and I'm so happy that we were able to connect and make this show and this interview happen. So, Stephanie, tell us all about your book. Tell us about the title, show us the cover, and tell us what we should know about it.
So here's my beautiful book.
I love it. The Cannabis Compass. Now, that seems like it would be a little bit of a controversy for some people. Tell us all about it.
Little bit, a little bit is an understatement when we're talking about cannabis. So the title of the book is Cannabis Compass: Finding Direction in Your Endocannabinoid System. And that's what makes the whole difference here. That's what makes this book different than all of the other books out there, because it's not just another weed book.
No, it's not.
It's not. It's talking all about why cannabis is so influential on the human body, the human mind, the animal body, the animal mind, and why that came to be. It's a very um, in-depth, understandable, and relatable book for the average person to understand. You don't have to have any kind of medical background. You don't have to have any kind of understanding of medical terminology. I break that all down and make that as easily relatable as possible for whether you are just the average person or if you are in fact a medical professional and seeking to learn more about cannabis and or the endocannabinoid system.
Yeah, I mean, I have read the book, and you have done a fantastic job outlining um, all of the benefits. And, it is not a I'll say a recreational weed book, right? Like it's not about the benefits as far as, what I ever anticipated. I had no idea that that system existed. I had no idea that it could be such a functional, really medicinal plant. And, I loved how you were very instructive in that sharing how it came about, how the destruction of
Mhm.
its reputation came about and why. And I think that that's something that people will find very interesting. But then it seems very impossible to not want to engage in use when you know that it is so beneficial to so many parts of your body and your existence. Um, and I did not find it to be a um, difficult to read. I didn't find it over my head. All of those things, because sometimes, when we think about medicine and all of the terminology and everything, it gets a little overwhelming. And yet I never felt that way. I felt more like it was a celebration of the solutions that it provides, as opposed to telling people what they don't know. Which, kudos to you as an author. That's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, again, it's kind of a topic that seemed to be taboo. How come you wrote this book? Why did you write this book?
So I've worked with people for almost a decade and a half now who have extreme health ailments or issues or chronic disease. And in that, I kind of veered over to the natural health side of things and worked with a lot of people who have a cancer diagnosis who are looking to either complement their conventional type therapies or taking a whole new path and looking to heal themselves. And in that process, I met a very world pioneering doctor at one of the cancer clinics who happens to be in Mexico, Dr. Tony, and he and his staff are very much open and willing to integrate anything that could potentially bring health, healing, or a better way to their patients. So, in his understanding that there's this whole system happening that nobody was taught about, it's still not in the medical curriculum. The endocannabinoid system is still not written in the general medical curriculum. Can you believe that? It is one of
Yes,
the
I
most right. It's arguably the most influential system in the body, and
can.
doctors and nurses and medical staff are not taught about it. So he proposed to me to write this book, and I said, I'm not a writer, Dr. Tony. I'm not writing a book. I don't have time for that. And he said, yes, you are. And I said, no, am not a writer. I'm not an author. I can't sit down and write a book. He said, yes, you can.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay. So I sat down and I wrote a book, and here's my book. And it was years, Sheila, it was years and years of research and digging and uncovering all of this information that is out there for anybody to find. But
Yeah.
it's hard to find unless it's what you're specifically looking for. It's hard to sort through medical journals and articles and peer-reviewed studies and sift through medical jargon if you are not on that side of the fence. And then to go ahead and apply it, forget it. Forget
Yeah.
it. So he wanted something that he could not only hand to his staff, but also to patients. So it had to cover a broad spectrum of understanding,
Mhm.
misunderstanding,
Sure.
or having no knowledge at all. So it was like an art kind of that I had to develop in putting this book together. So it was very it was a challenge for me. You caught me several times and had to pull me back several times and remind me that
Hey, you did it. You did a great job, and, I think Dr. Tony would be very proud of what you came up with, and, I do think that it is something he could not only hand to his fellow colleagues, but also to his patients, and everybody will be able to have a better understanding. Um, I personally, if I were in charge, I would make sure that every, medical student, had a copy and dental student, to be honest, because I think that that is it is all information worth knowing, and I understand why it won't be that way,
Mhm,
unfortunately, but
mhm.
I still think that it is worth doing. Um, Stephanie, I'm going to call you out a little bit right this minute, and I'm going to ask you if you would share why you got started on the cannabis journey to begin with, and share the story about your dad, and how that happened, because I think that um, you came to know this not just because you were curious. You came to know this for a very specific reason, and I think that it would help our listeners today and your readers to understand the motivation behind why you did this.
For sure. So I didn't stumble upon it, and I didn't start researching it because I had an interest in it. I was actually on that train of cannabis is a drug, it's for stoners, it's for people who just want to get high. And I was actually in school full time to become a physical therapist. I had been a personal trainer for years and years and years. And I was in the medical system on my way, on my daily studies of becoming a physical therapist. And my dad was diagnosed with stage 3 lung cancer. He was told, you have no options. We'll do chemo, radiation, and surgery, and that's all we have for you. And he said, give me something else, doc. I need another option. And they said, you don't have any options. And I was like, you want to make a sick man sicker. I know where those treatments are going to take him. He knows where those treatments are going to take him. So after we regrouped, I said, Dad, we're going to go at this. You do whatever you need to do. But can I please help you heal, bring health and regeneration back to your body who's not doing so well? And he said, yeah, but I'll do anything you want. Give me some of that funny stuff. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, that stuff people smoke and it gets them high and makes them laugh and feel good. And I said, Reed, you want to get high? Are you serious? You have cancer and you want to get stoned? And he said, so what if I do? So what if it puts me in a good mood? So what if it makes me happy? I have cancer. And I was like, oh, who am I? Who am I to judge? So I took a step back, I took a deep breath, and I dove headfirst into this. And 15 years ago, Sheila, it was hard because the stigma was so strong and thick that you couldn't talk about this without a side eye look from anybody around.
Yeah.
You couldn't find a practicing medical professional who would work with you as a patient if you
Mhm.
were consuming because they didn't understand it. And it was still illegal at the time.
Right.
Many laws have passed since then who have changed the landscape of this.
Right.
And it was not that way back then.
Mhm.
So I it was really hard. There was nobody to work with, there was nobody to guide us, there was nobody to confirm that what I had discovered was true and applicable. So we tiptoed very lightly. I introduced it very gently. Didn't go at it as aggressive as I would have liked to, and it did wonders for him during his time. It was not enough to change his outcome. 4 years after he was diagnosed, we lost him. So I was kind of set back in thinking that everything I did just went to waste. And then 3 years after losing my dad, my sister was diagnosed with the rarest form of breast cancer known to science. And she saw what those treatments did to my dad, the chemo and the radiation. And she came to me and said, I will do nothing before I do what happened to dad. So we integrated very intensely with cannabis therapy along with all of her other treatments. It was not her one and only. It's not a panacea. I don't
Yeah.
treat it as such, but it is still. So that was in 2017 when she was diagnosed. Is um, years and years later. I don't want to date this, but we're 7, 8 years past her diagnosis. She is still cancer free to this day, and cannabis is a very large continuing part of her ongoing treatment.
Right. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I really appreciate you sharing the story, and I think that I think you said some very important things. That one, the landscape of cannabis has come a long way, right? Like it's not looked at the same way. It is, the pendulum is swinging back to it can be a medicine as opposed to a taboo substance,
Mm,
you know. Um, and so I think that's important, and to see the impact that it's had on just two people that that have been diagnosed with cancer, and that it is part of the treatment, not the only treatment. And I think that that's super important as well. And when you have those kinds of, and I know you have hundreds of patients that you have coached, um, with cannabis therapy
Mhm.
that have had similar results. So I know that your sister is not the only one, and I think that that's amazing. But I do think that what a beautiful way to be able to show the importance of what cannabis can do. Um, Stephanie, one thing I do want to say or ask you is um, cannabis is not just smoking weed, right? Like, so can you break down some of the different ways that cannabis therapy can exist in, if that makes sense?
Sure. So
Yeah.
that's probably the main misconception is
Mhm.
I don't want to smoke anything and I don't want to get high. And there are so many other methods of use. I have an incredible population of people who are entrepreneurs, moms, grandparents, high functioning executives, you know, all using cannabis and functioning. They're high functioning individuals. You can consume it orally, by oil, by pill, by capsule, um, drops. There's patches that can be used topically. There's a whole system in the skin, the integumentary system, that is separate from what's happening inside with the endocannabinoid system. You can vape. And by vape, I don't mean those vape pens. I mean dry herb vaporization. Again, another unknown method that most people are not aware of. Um, you can use patches, you can use salves, you can use
Mhm.
creams, you can use a vaporizer. Some people can smoke, for instance, if somebody's having epileptic seizure, or
Mhm.
if they are in extreme excruciating pain and they need something to work immediately, inhalation may be an option in between doses. Okay, so
Okay.
there's multiple methods that can be utilized as far as lifestyle goes. We
Mhm.
fit it in, and there's also assessments that should be done. It's not something that anybody should just dive into or start
Mhm.
experimenting with. And I added that into the book as well to
Yeah.
kind of do a self-assessment to find out, do I have a dysfunction in my own endocannabinoid system? Is this something that I should explore further and reach out to somebody to find out what those methods of consumption might do for me in my current state?
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And um, I think that that's helpful too for folks that are wondering if this could help them, that they have the assessment tool as a resource as well in the book. So when I tell you that this is a one stop shop, and it is something that will help just about anyone. Um, I'm not lying. So you did a great job. Okay, so Stephanie, have you gotten any feedback from readers that have read the book that you might want to share with us? Things, something that really meant something to you.
So I have actually, and they're pretty consistent in the reviews. Most of them fall into the same category. There's so many repeat reviews of people, of my readers, sharing feedback that I just didn't know I had this system in their body. I didn't know I had an endocannabinoid system. I didn't know that there was something different than smoking. I
Mhm.
didn't know that consuming was more than just getting high. And review after review after review, it's almost 9 times out of 10
Mhm.
comes back where my reader says, I cannot believe, I had no idea. My perception is completely different. I have a totally different outlook. I am more open to learning more at this point
Nice,
because I
nice.
just didn't know. And that's coming from medical professionals
Hmm.
as well as the general population, law enforcement too. I've had law enforcement
That's
reach out
awesome.
to me and say, wow, if only If only everybody knew there was a system that interacts with this.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, okay, let's talk a little bit about Stephanie McKeith. Tell me what if you when you're not writing books that you thought that you couldn't write, um, what do you do? What do you how do you spend your time?
Well, I'm one of those people that I love to learn. I love to connect with other people. So I do a lot of interviews and I listen to people's story. And because this is, I mean, we've already talked about the taboo is kind of crumbling from cannabis. I mean, the whole landscape has changed. However, it's still a stigmatized topic. It's still fairly misunderstood. There's still a lot of pushback, especially in communities that are considering bringing in provisioning centers, which are formally known as dispensaries. Verbiage is also a very important aspect of this whole conversation. And that's what I do in my free time. I talk to people and I engage in these conversations and I do events and I do local meetings and I connect with people who aren't quite sure what to do and are looking for different ways to integrate this. And I have beautiful family and I drag them along with me everywhere I go. So when I'm going to these events or different speaking engagements or things like that, I take my kids along with me and involve them too, because the next generation, if we don't teach them different, they're not going to know any better as well. So I'm a very active person, physical activity, sports. I old plunging. I'm here in Michigan. It's pretty dang cold here and the river is frozen over to the point where guys that I cold dip with have to take their picks and sledgehammers and machetes and break us open a spot so we can get into that freezing cold river. That's my latest entertainment for myself. Feels so good though afterwards. The torture, that short-term torture,
Yeah,
well worth the rest of the day relief. It feels so
nice.
good.
All right, all right. Well, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. All right, so if our listeners today want to connect with you
Mhm.
and want to purchase the book too, tell us how we can do all of that.
So my book is on Amazon. Anybody can
Okay.
go to Amazon and just look up my name or the title, Cannabis Compass, Finding Direction in Your Endocannabinoid System. It's there. You can connect with me through Facebook. Ending Stigmas is the name of my page on Facebook. Or connect with me on Instagram if you're there. I know some people like one over the other. And on Instagram, I'm Stephanie.McKeith. So I'm very easy to find anywhere. And um, a website too, endingstigmas.com.
Nice. Awesome. That's fantastic. All right, Stephanie, is there anything else that you would like our listeners to know before we head off today?
If ever you are facing a challenging situation, push yourself through it. Don't try to go around it. Don't try to go over it. Don't try to go under it. You have to work your way through it. If you are presented with a very hard diagnosis or you're just in a very awkward place in life, embrace it, accept it for all it is. The healing is in the feeling. You have to feel through it, you have to go through it, and avoiding it isn't going to be helpful. And I've learned that from personal experience and also relearn it through every person that shares their story with me. And the only way to get to the other side is to go through it.
That's awesome. Um, that's a tweet right there. The healing is in the feeling.
Mhm.
Um, Kudos to you. That's
I
very
wish it
well.
were mine, but I heard that somewhere along the way.
um, well, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your brilliance and bringing it into the world and not being afraid to end the stigmas and sharing with us all the benefits that this beautiful medicine can really bring to our bodies and our healing. And thank you for showing up and being who you are. And good luck with the cold plunge, girl, because I'm going to leave that to you.
I'll take it for the team.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for being here today. Y'all go visit all of her. I'll have all of her contact information in the show notes. And by all means, please go grab a copy of Cannabis Compass, because I absolutely believe that it will change the way you think about it, and it will help you. You'll find ways that it will help you. So don't suffer any longer than you have to. Go get that book today. All right. Thanks so much for being here today. I appreciate you spending time with us. And until the next episode, bye for now.
Thank you.